If you'll indulge me, I'd like to read 2 pages from advice from the extraterrestrials. Yes, it's true that we have been in contact with your government and heads of power. It is also true that agreements have been made and kept secret from your people. It is also true that in the past, some of your people have lost their lives or have been badly hurt to protect this secret.
Wow.
Our hands had no part in this.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Laid Back with another reaction, another review, another episode. Hey, TikTok, you up to bat. Bah! It's your boy Laid Back. Welcome back to my channel. Hey, 2 things we got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. I'm drinking this water. You already know what it is, man. You are the prize in 2025. You are the prize in 2025. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with all the videos. We back with another reaction. Hey, this video, I'm going to try to heart every comment. I'm going to try to heart every comment on this video, man. So we're going to take it back. We haven't did that in a while, so I'm going to try to heart every comment. But we back with another collection of conspiracy theories and all that type of stuff. You make it to the end of this one, you a real one for real. Make sure you put that in the comments. Make sure you share this with the last person you text in your phone, please. But yeah, shout out to my people, man. Shout out to my real ones out there. Also, I got a TikTok playlist. If you into this stuff, you can binge watch, but I would just say proceed with caution. There's a lot of stuff in there, but let's go ahead and get into it. Fire Squad, what's popping? Let's get it.
Why are the aliens abiding by their plan?
Because I don't think they are. I don't. That's not what I'm saying. I think that would freak them out, and they're not doing that, right? I think if they are real and they do observe us, they probably observe us in a way where there's a limited amount of detection. And I think there's probably, if I was going to acclimate a culture to the idea that they're not alone, I would do it slowly. That way you could have the same ultimate effect eventually, and maybe help them along their evolution as well, along their cultural evolution, to like slowly introduce this concept that they're not alone, and then do it over decades, which is exactly what's been happening. And the acceptance of it has changed from when I was a kid. You talk about UFOs, you're a fucking kook, 100%.
Yeah,
straight up kook. And then the Bob Lazar story came around, and everybody was like, hey, wait a minute, is that guy telling the truth? And that was like 89, but still seemed like bullshit. And then there was a bunch of questions about his education background, bullshit artist. But then over time, more people have seen enough things like Commander David Fravor, and more people have seen things that like have no explanation whatsoever. You start hearing stories from high-level people about retrieved vehicles and this and that. It's more and more and more and more and more normal people talking about it, and more professors at Stanford and the New York Times in 2017, Prince's story, and respected Air Force pilots are coming out and talking about it. It's a different world,
Man, because it's real. Do your own research, though.
Do aliens exist?
Yes.
First, the ingredients of life on Earth, they're not special. They're made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. These are the most common ingredients in the universe. Now, how many locations might you have life? We've got an inventory in the making right now. The Kepler telescope gave us a list of 1,000 planets out there that are nearby the sun, and that's just in our little pocket of the Milky Way galaxy. So you run the numbers, the statistics strongly argue in favor of life. Now, whether it's intelligent life that we would call intelligent, here's you want to lose sleep? Maybe there's life that's so intelligent, it doesn't consider us to be intelligent. We came up with our own definitions of what intelligence is.
That's real.
Imagine they are so brilliant, they wouldn't even waste their time.
Is it therefore hubris to believe in God?
It would be, I think, if your God created the whole universe just to put you in it.
The gentleman with which I was associated was approximately 3.5 feet tall. He had a dark brown appearance, very ruddy appearance to his skin. He was in a highly pressurized clean sphere. 3.5 feet, large head in comparison to torso, large bulbous black eyes. The whites of the eyes had been selected out, so it looked like a large pupil. basically. When you look into his eyes, you feel like you're going to fall into his eyes forever. And I think that probably had something to do with the telepathic nature of his mental structure. He was hunched over most of the time, could not support himself fully, given muscular atrophy, and that had to do with the peripheral neuropathy under which he was suffering. He was unclothed, which bothered him. He wanted to wear clothing and was refused in every turn. Called himself captive, and justifiably so. His facial features were grotesque in comparison to what he showed me what normal would be. Nose was recessed, an extremely small mouth, a hard palate, no teeth.
Do you have any idea what his chronological age was?
622. They
Whoa.
excrete in a manner that we would excrete. Their external genitalia are different than ours. The females have somewhat like vulva, but they have a clasper situation. The male has a male clasper, the female claspers. And if it looks like a disc with rectangular solids that are rotated into position for clasping at the inguinal region. They do have internal fertilization.
Now, this was something you read because you didn't see a female, did you?
No, this is something he showed me of his wife. Everything that he showed me when this was the incident. When he projected it into me, it felt like I was there. He was extremely depressed. If we were to term him human, I'm not a psychologist, but I think he would be termed as clinically depressed.
Okay.
He wept, but he didn't weep outside. He wept when he was with me.
Well, could you estimate what his level of intellect was?
He was smarter than me. He was smarter than me by a long range.
Did he have a wide range of knowledge?
The mathematics that he showed me blew my mind.
Was that right?
He showed me concurrently not only the
Do y'all believe this guy? Who is this guy? The man who talked to a 622-year-old alien. Whoa.
equations for the rule of nines. But he also did so diagrammatically, and he did so with three-dimensional, like a VRML system, where I was watching cubes come together. Highly evolved, highly intellectual, highly repressed emotionally. When I was with him, I felt great happiness to be with him, but I could feel his great sadness, not only because of what he wanted to become, what he knew he was by being present with us, but where he was and how he was being treated. He was not part of the group that has to be catered to involving the T9 treaty that was just signed. He wanted to help. He was willing. When I went in, for God's sakes, I took well over, nearly 300 individualized aspiration samples from his neurological system. He would hold his arm out for me to take them. There was no pain medication. And whenever I would fire the introduction system to remove the sample, it was an aspirative avulsion system, he would cry, and then he would just stand there and look at me.
What? That sounds crazy.
High government officials disclosing extraterrestrials. Paul Hellyer.
Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense of Canada, and he believes that life forms from space exist and are present on Earth. Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. So they decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years.
Wow.
So that's we have a long history of UFOs, and of course there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again, and because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us, but other people in the cosmos. They're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
Wow, 4 different species?
If you'll indulge me, I'd like to read 2 pages from advice from the extraterrestrials. Yes, it's true that we have been in contact with your government and heads of power. It is also true that we've been It is also true that agreements have been made and kept secret from your people. It is also true that in the past, some of your people have lost their lives or have been badly hurt to protect the secret.
Wow.
Our hands had no part in this. We contacted your leaders because your planet is in grave trouble. Your leaders said the vast majority of your population wasn't ready for anything like us yet. So we made time agreements with your leaders as to when your people would be made aware of our presence.
This is crazy.
Your air, your water are contaminated. Your forests, jungles, trees, and plant life are dying. There are several breaks in your food chain. You have an overwhelming amount of nuclear and biological weapons, which include nuclear and biological contamination. Your planet is overpopulated. Warning, it is almost to the point of being too late, unless your people act. There are better ways of deriving energy and food needs without causing your planet any damage. Those in power are aware of this and have the capability of putting these methods into worldwide use. Those in power view it as a military and security threat. That upset me. You mean to tell me that the people in power have the ability to save and better the planet, and they aren't doing it? Amnesty. What do you mean? Complete amnesty to those in power, governments and leaders who have been suppressing the truth, that they can't be held liable for any past wrong deeds. It is the only way these leaders can come forward with the truth. It is necessary that you do this in order to work together and survive.
Bro, this dude is reading this in court, bro.
Had the opportunity over the years to interview, again, people who have worked at the test site at Groom Lake. One gentleman spent 12 of his 30 years in black programs at Groom Lake. When I asked him, I said, first of all, I said, do you believe in UFOs? And he looked at me with a straight face in one-on-one. He said, absolutely, positively, they do exist. I said, can you expand upon that? He said, no, I can't. About a year later, we were talking about, again, activities at Groom Lake. And I asked him, I said, you know, can you really tell me what's happening out there? And he said, well, there's a lot of things that are going on there that I won't be able to tell you until the year 2025. But we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envy.
2025. That was last year, homie. That was last year.
So the first question is, why are the aliens here? But even a question before that, are there really aliens?
Right.
The answer is yes. The aliens have always been here. They're not just here now. They've always been here. Why is that? Because the Earth is a rare jewel in the galaxy, a rare jewel of life. It is rare in an otherwise empty universe to have such a beautiful source of life, self-sustaining life. That's Earth. That's our planet. We are part of that beauty. We are part of the species. We're beautiful people. We're on a beautiful planet. And this planet has attracted attention because of its beauty, because of its life, because of its resources. This planet has attracted attention, certainly for millions of years, possibly tens of millions of years. The aliens have always been here. So yes, they're here now, and we're about to embark on the first stages of an ascension, what I believe is to a fifth dimension. And I want to share with you how that's actually going to play out. There are going to be massive changes to the world. If we're going to ascend from a three-dimensional reality to a fifth-dimensional reality, it's going to involve a lot of breaking of bonds and old systems and structures to release those, and those that ascend will be able to ascend to a fifth dimension. But make no mistake about it, those breaking of bonds is going to be very, very disruptive. And most people are going, a lot of people are going to get hurt, and a lot of people are going to struggle and suffer. Some of us may already start feeling that trauma and disconnect. So just be prepared for that. Now, why don't the aliens just come down and just tell us what to do? There's three reasons. The first reason, and the most important one, is a language barrier. We speak English. They don't speak English. They're fifth dimensional beings. They don't speak three-dimensional languages. Through channelers, they're able to convert their fifth dimensional ideas into sequential English sentences through these channelers. So they can't just come down and, get in front of a blackboard and teach us how to raise our dimension to fifth dimension, because they don't speak linearly the way we speak. So there's a language barrier. The second barrier is a time barrier. When they transmit information to us, they transmit the whole information. They don't say, well, first I'm going to tell you this, then come back tomorrow, I'm going to tell you that, then this, then that, then a few years later you'll be ready and I'll explain this to you. They don't do it like that. They transmit information or download information to us, the whole thing. And then we who have to do things sequentially in three dimensions, we're left to sort this message out over the next days, weeks, months, and years. So we have a time dimension problem. And then finally, the third gap between us and the aliens is an entire dimensional gap. We think in three dimensions. So we're limited not only to sequential time, but to only the things that we can see and experience with our five senses, with our lowest senses. When they look down, and you can actually, for a second, imagine yourself as a fifth dimensional being looking down on Earth, and what you would see is just millions and 8 billion balls of light. We are light to them. We are light to the aliens. And so what's happening in our world underneath that in three dimensions isn't real. It's a projection of our consciousness, and they don't share that reality. So we live in our reality that is different than what they see. So for example, I told you there's going to be a lot of disruption. Let's say 3 million people die. Dang. Well, to us, that's tragic, and it affects us, and now I am affected. I have a cousin or whatever. We're all interconnected, so we all experience this tragedy, say, when 3 million people die. It's a terrible tragedy. To the aliens, we're still light. We're just, those 3 million people now can serve the collective, or, go on their journey and be part of the universal light. So to them, it's not like we're dying. It's not like we're suffering or struggling. It's all imaginary. It's all in our consciousness. So there's a dimensional gap, which is why they can't just come in, stand in front of a whiteboard, and explain to us how to go to fifth dimension, right? And by the way, before you can go to the fifth dimension, you have to understand how to go to the fourth dimension. Right. In the community, I'm going to teach classes. It's a simple meditation, how you can rise to the fourth dimension. Once you're in the fourth dimension, then we can have a conversation, and then we can start to learn how to rise to the fifth dimension. It's a totally different experience. The fourth dimension is easy. I can show that to you right away. But the fifth dimension is more integrated. You kind of have to integrate it into your lifestyle and your habits. You've got to make a lot of changes. So that's the challenge that we have in communicating with the aliens.
So he can take me to the fifth dimension.
Anunnaki, what are they?
They are these beings that came from off-world. These are aliens. Now, what's interesting about these aliens is that they're not little green men with antenna. They're actually hominids. They have 2 forward-face-looking eyes, 2 hands, legs. They put their pants on one leg at a time like us. And the reason why is because we have their genetics and their DNA inside of our bodies. Now, what's interesting is these beings were a spacefaring race that broke away from the Pleiadian star system. Now, these stars, according to ancient texts and tablets, there was an ancient galactic war there. Most of the information from Star Wars comes from this text. And this war, they had these destroyers like Death Star. They call them the Brahma-Astra and Brahma-Astra Honda weapons that actually can release a weapon that can destroy planets. Imagine if you're in a star system and a planet is being blown up and you're in a nearby planet. You got to get off of your planet. This created something called space refugees.
Where are you getting this information again? Where is
the
it?
Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian Vedas.
So these are ancient Indian texts.
That's right.
5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Whoa. That sounds crazy.
What is the position of the British government on UFOs? Tell me, what's the position there?
The bottom line is that there is the special relationship with America, and America is quite clearly the most secretive government in the world on UFOs. And it leads, their fingers are in every decent UFO report around the world.
I want to know about Britain. We know pretty
Okay,
much about
well,
America.
Britain follows generally America's lead on most things, and Britain does the same. They have been releasing over the last 3.5 years several batches of files, which are in terms of papers, hundreds of thousands of single sheets of paper. However, the majority of the paper that has been released is very low level. It's mostly correspondence. In amongst that, there are some very good cases. For example, a British case in 1957, Milton Torres, a pilot.
Okay, stop.
Okay, in Britain.
Yeah. You don't give me cases. We got cases.
Okay.
I want to know what's happening in Britain. I want to know what's happening with
Britain
the military.
is very
I want to know what's
lame.
happening with the government.
The media is very similar as to the US in not reporting. It belittles the subject, and it's criminal. And there is very little or no difference in the UK to the US.
This is a world phenomenon that we're discussing.
Absolutely.
You all know it way better than we do.
Absolutely.
We've heard testimony now 3 days and read a month leading up to this, videos and all. Ms. Howe. Yes. And it's really for all of you. And I think you ended your presentation on something like this. What and why is such a profound reality?
Right.
Yes. Not being built upon, internalized.
Right.
If I have my military who comes to me and tells me they've got data, experiences, and other kinds of things that this is real, other countries, I've been on elevator and in the hotels with others from Chile and Peru and everywhere else in the world, or many places in the world. When we already acknowledge that whatever it is more significant than what we have here, and obviously in Britain and some of the other countries. The why of it, your scientific data is outstanding. See, I think the answer is probably in a coalition of nations and not in our governments, obviously, because the governments know something we don't know and they aren't sharing it, and it could be critical and catastrophic for the human being.
Well, let me add a postscript to yesterday's presentation on Bentwaters. It's a major case. It involved dozens of military people on a very important base. I, for one, at least, have been exposed to information from 2 people that within 24 hours of the Jim Penniston, John Burroughs, and Ed Kovansak encounter with the black, glassy craft with the hieroglyphic symbols on it in the forest, that within 24 hours in the UK, the National Security Agency of the United States took over everything that was happening at Bentwaters.
They testified to that.
This is important because it means that within 24 hours, a decision had been made somewhere at some level between the United States and the UK that the United States would take precedent through the National Security Agency.
Okay, stop. We heard that. No, I'm not good. I don't know the scientific part of it. I'm just going to tell you the political and what we do and what things we know about our country and the world and our relationships with various countries of the world. You got to teach us something else. Wait, let me just finish my point, because don't give me that testimony we had yesterday. We all heard it, we got notes, and we got to read it and embellish it.
Damn.
I want to move it to the action phase. You came here to ask us to do something, and we got to know how, what, and why. Haven't got there yet, and maybe by Friday or next month, or as we move this over the next couple of years, we'll get closer than you've got in 30 years, and you're to be commended. What you have unveiled is something is there, that we're not alone. I'm still learning. I want to learn more about that, in fact. But as I learn it, the existence as we know it is being jeopardized. It may not exist next week, let alone 30 more years.
I was only going to your point about international versus the United States. It's my impression that the United States, for some reason politically, is carrying the weight of the disclosure. I don't know why, because other countries have bodies, have craft, have photographs, have physical evidence. But the United States, going back to World War II and decisions that were made, for some reason, it is this country that seems to have the pivotal weight in disclosure.
What do you think that is? U.S. is if it's not for real, it's perceived to be the power of the world.
And that's exactly the reason why.
And right. So we sit here in the power of the world,
but it's
with
loss
a
of
power
power
not of this world, or we don't know how it does.
Do you think America wants to lose that power?
Hold it, you can't interrupt a congressperson. I will yield to you in a moment, though. I will, because I just want to. We want to get to what we need to get to, really, and how we get to make it something so that we can all live another 100 years, or thereabouts. So I'm going to yield to you, Mr. Hilton, in just a second, and you too. I don't want to. I'm just getting antsy up here. Today you all took it to, every day it's another level. Woo, woo. But I hate how we trivialize this situation.
Exactly.
I hate the men with the horns and all that, and what my colleague read yesterday. That's been since day one. And I'm telling you, we know it's so profound.
Yes.
And so big and so real. When you don't know how to deal with it, you trivialize it. So when people think that we're coming, you all have been commending us, we've all taken a lot of flack, and we're proud of it. We're servants of the people. But to come here and then hear this other crap, in my home paper as well, I don't even talk to them. Because you can't say conspiracy if you're a congresswoman, because they really think you're wacko. But there's something out here that's been coordinated from our leadership, not the president person, but the office and our military and our press. That's a national conglomeration that continues. And unless we can somehow step outside of that and build some kind of coalitions and work and pray and build and speak and teach.
Hey, they was going in.
Have you ever encountered someone that you thought was a hybrid?
Yes, there are people I've met that, to me, felt like they're not 100% human. And some I've met at CIA, some I've met just in ordinary everyday life. You just get this feeling that you come in contact with them and you know that they're special. Especially with me personally, if I walk into a room, I can tell who the light workers are because I can feel the energy radiating from them. And I react with that energy. And I really like that feeling of that energy that they emanate. It's a good, friendly, very strong, very vibrant, positive energy. Likewise, you go into a room and all of a sudden you just feel like that person is someone you don't want to be with. They're just resonating differently. And it's more like resonance, like we need to find our natural resonance. And you could do that through meditation, but once you find your natural resonance, it's like tuning in a radio. Because right now, there are all kinds of broadcast frequencies, but you can only listen to one at a time.
How did your hybridization come about? Is that one of the ways that you found out? Through the frequencies?
Through mine?
Yes.
My personal hybridization is mostly my interpretation of the experiences that I had of being taken aboard the craft, and having light workers tell me that you're a hybrid, you have an implant.
Whoa.
What is the most dangerous information that you know?
Oh boy, they're going to hoax an alien threat, and it's all a lie. So we are actually in the last year at the point where they've started on that plan. We have got to intercept this plan and stop it. Or if you think 9/11 and the Iraq War was a clusterfuck, this is going to be that 1,000 times worse. That there's a group of people who control this issue that are trying to provoke an interplanetary incident. So the next war, World War III, will be interplanetary. And there is a serious group of nut jobs, and they have to be put on a leash and stood down fast and quickly. This group started releasing stuff to the CNN and Washington Post and New York Times. Every bit of information they're putting out has to spin, it's a threat to the national security, our sovereignty has been invaded. It's the kind of brainwashing that's already started to try to convince the public there is an alien threat. You know, the future, what we're going to do and have on this planet is hanging in the balance, and we're going to have to wake up.
This was, now I knew we were on the absolute beyond the cutting edge of science. And I was so absolutely excited to be there every single time I was. However, in short order, it began to concern me. We really have no idea what we're talking about. And the excitement kind of turned to dread at some point, because the amount of power we're dealing with is astronomical. I mean, to affect gravity, to produce the effects like this equipment does, takes huge amounts of power. I've given the example before of taking a small portable nuclear reactor and putting it back into Victorian times with the scientists of the time, just dropping it in a room. They come and look at it and see that it's producing power and wonder how it works, so they start taking it apart. And as soon as they get some of the shielding off, the people are going to drop dead because of the radiation inside. Now, the people have no idea that radiation even exists back then. But anybody that comes in to check on them will also drop dead. There's no reason that that exact scenario couldn't happen with what we're dealing with. We have no idea how the physics operate within this thing. The power levels are, like I said, astronomical. Incredibly dangerous to tinker with something like that.
What is he talking about?
What are some of the 145 top secret facilities that you know about?
Well, you know, everyone talks about Area 51. That's an old one. That's a big one in Dugway. It's underground, goes out. It's about 1,300 square miles. Not acres, miles.
1,300 square miles? Yeah. What's in there?
All this stuff. Technologies, the craft, operations. He got to the site, there was about a 6x6 pod. There was some sort of one molded thing, and there were 4, I'm going to use his language, little men that look like the color of a Sicilian, but 39 inches tall, no hair, and also no external ears, no pinna, flaps, very fine featured. You know, I've debriefed over 1,000 men like. He said, I can't figure out how they got in and out of their uniforms. So they had a one-piece uniform, now no zipper and no buttons, and no visible way they could get them out of this thing. And he says, how do they put them on? I said, well, they don't need a zipper or a button because they are kind of materialized around them and then dematerialized off using this technology.
Crazy.
Skywatcher. I watched a video of theirs on YouTube. I mean, it'll blow your mind.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa, I gotta watch their channel.
I was there at the Bayside Mall with my family, and we all saw exactly what happened. Don't pay attention to a lot of the videos that are out there. I feel like a lot of people are trying to use this for clout. But what happened, we all saw what happened, and it's pretty serious. It's been a few days, and our whole family's processing it, but I think we've kind of accepted that we were a part of this weird experience and moment. So basically what happened was I was there with my brother Brian, my sister and my nephew. We were looking for shoes for my nephew. And then we see a whole crowd of people outside the store, just running out in a direction. So, as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh shit, what's going on? So we immediately ran out with our nephew, and we picked him up and we ran out and we followed the crowd. And then about a few seconds later, as soon as we started running, my nephew, he's autistic, so he was pointing behind us and he was saying blankie, which he'll usually say whenever he feels unsafe or scared. And he was pointing behind us. So me and my brother, we looked behind us, and then we see these 3 9, 10 foot tall creatures. I'm not going to say aliens. Everyone keeps saying it's aliens. I'm not saying aliens because I don't know what it was. None of us really knew everyone. All of us stopped in our track. We, you know, a whole bunch of people were pointing at it. I mean, there were other people running. You know, there was a crowd. As soon as it made itself more apparent, it looked like it was glitching. Not like a computer pixelation, but like a wavy glitch. And whatever maybe was covering them had, you know, unveiled or whatever. Yeah, it looked like a glitch, man. It like a weird glitch in the Matrix or whatever. And then you could see it in its full form, all three of them. And then, you know, they were all black. You saw eyes, and you could faintly see like lips. But, yeah, I was about like 20 feet away. Because obviously everybody gave it distance, right? And, you know, they're tall. So we all just like looked at them. They were just standing there. And the thing that was a little bit weird, well, it was clearly like observing us. It was sentient, right? Like, or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but, it was aware of us. It looked at us, the whole crowd. And then as soon as it started walking with its big legs, like,
come on, bro.
I was watching this documentary today. It's a new James Fox documentary about a UFO landing in Brazil in 1996. Holy shit, it's incredible. I had no idea that there's a city called Varginha in Brazil, and in 1996, according to everyone who was there, according to medical records of people who were there, they blocked off, the military came in, cordoned off the area, they recovered a crashed UFO. And there was living creatures that people came in contact with, and one of them was this tiny little thing that this guy carried, and he carried it to wherever they were going to examine it. And when he carried it, he got whatever was on its skin. It had like a slippery kind of skin. It got into his body and infected him, and he wound up with this horrible general infection, and he wound up dying. Dang. His body shut down. His immune system shut down. His body didn't know what the fuck to do with this alien thing that he was interacting with. There's real records of this guy contacting this thing, grabbing it, carrying it in. All these people witnessed it, and then this guy winds up with this insane infection shortly there afterwards. That's all documented too, all of his medical records.
Whoa.
In 1982, Roger Monroe predicted that demons would disguise themselves as aliens at the end of time.
That as the times on this planet gets more and more difficult, and calamities of all kinds are striking the planet more and more frequently. He says the grand plain, the Master's grand plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grand plain is going to take people are going to eat the stuff, because it says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. And he went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences when the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people. Spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause them to enter into a higher state of existence.
Sound like what Buddy was saying earlier.
They're not visitors. They've been here from the very beginning. So I hate the word alien. Many of them have been on this planet before we were here. So the term alien doesn't apply. They've been here from the very beginning, and they're here in mass. Place. I mean, under Mount Hayes in Alaska, there's a major extraterrestrial facility. Under El Yunque Mountain in Puerto Rico, there's a major extraterrestrial facility. There's one in a mountain in the Pyrenees, its name passes me for a moment here, where there's a major extraterrestrial facility, and there's another facility underground in Australia near a place called Pine Gap. Pine Gap happens to be probably the largest national security facility that we have on the planet. And isn't that a coincidence that right next to Pine Gap, underground, is an alien activity facility? I mean, these guys are all over the damn place.
If I'd come up to you and said, are UFOs real? What would you have said?
Yeah, these are real. I mean, don't take my word for it. Our government's already said it. You have a former director of national intelligence telling the world, yeah, these things are real, whatever they are. You have a former director of CIA. You have a former president of the United States. And we've known for a long time they're real. And by the way, it's not just our country. There's other countries that are very forthcoming. There's countries in South America that have been dealing with this for a long time. Japan just entered into a bilateral information sharing agreement with our country for the express purposes of sharing UAP information and data. China's interested. Russia's interested in this. Several European countries have a fairly robust capability. I have a lot of information on this.
Was there a moment when your belief changed? What I thought about UAPs was wrong?
Sure. And what I often tell people, there's two types of individuals, the way that we process this information. In one category, you have people that will sit there and say, I had this epiphany, this revelatory moment where all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, they're real? Are you kidding me? And then there's another group of people, which I probably fall into that second category, the latter category, which is more of a slow progression and realization of what we're dealing with is not a conventional technology. It's something else. At some point, the preponderance of evidence is so overwhelming. And in this case, you have eyewitness testimony, you have it backed up by gun camera footage, you have it backed up by FLIR footage, you have it backed up by radar information. You've got 5, 6, sometimes 7 pieces of corroborating sensor data. That's all reporting the same event at the same time, at the same place, under the same circumstances. I know it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have. I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying is that we have to deal with this. And it's not me just telling you that. This is our government. We know. We have laws now on the books because this topic is now so serious. We have whistleblowers ready to come out and testify before the American people because this is so serious. We have set up an organization, specifically its sole purpose is to investigate UAP because this topic is so serious. So this is not a flight of fancy here. We're investing millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, to try to figure this out. And interestingly enough, I think when the investigative body first realized was created, there was this hope that in the first report they said, oh, there's 143 incidents that remain unidentified, but we're going to whittle them away. What happened the next time they had a report? There was now 300. And what happened after that? Now 800. The number's going up, not down, that remain unresolved. And so, we've got to have this uncomfortable conversation with ourselves.
The treaty stated, the aliens would not interfere in our affairs and we would not interfere in theirs. We were particularly interested that they do not interfere with anything that would affect our future, which has been violated. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret. They would furnish us with advanced technology and would help us in our technological development. They would not make any treaty with any other Earth nation. They could abduct humans on a limited and periodic basis for the purpose of medical examination and monitoring of our development with the stipulation that the humans would not be harmed, would be returned to their point of abduction, that the humans would have no memory of the event, and that the alien nation would furnish MJ-12 with a list of all human contacts and abductees on a regularly scheduled basis. And this is not being done. It was agreed that each nation would receive the ambassador of the other for as long as the treaty remained in force. It was further agreed that the alien nation and the United States would exchange 16 personnel each to the other with the purpose of learning each of the other. The alien guests would remain on Earth and the human guests would travel to the alien point of origin for a specified period of time, then return, at which point a reverse exchange would be made. I have no knowledge whatsoever of what happened to those original 16 humans who left the Earth with the aliens.
Whoa.
It was also agreed that bases would be constructed underground for the use of the alien nation and that 2 bases would be constructed for the joint use of the alien nation and the United States government. The base at Dulce is one, the base at S4 in the area known as Area 51 or Dreamland is the second. Exchange of technology would take place in the jointly occupied bases. These alien bases would be constructed under Indian reservations in the 4 corners of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, and one would be constructed in Nevada in the area known as S4, located approximately 7 miles south of the western border of Area 51, otherwise known as Dreamland. All alien areas are under complete control of the Naval Department, and all personnel who work in these complexes receive their checks from the Navy. Construction of the bases began immediately, but progress was slow until large amounts of money were made available in 1957, and in the meantime, work continued on the Yellow Book with the information derived from the guests.
16 people left, and they don't know what happened to them?
Do you think there's extraterrestrials out there, Al, as well?
What?
Do you think there's aliens?
You know, I've been asked that question hundreds of times. Do you believe in aliens? And I say, yeah. Have you ever seen one? I say, yeah, I have. Well, how have you seen them? Well, I said, I look in the mirror every morning. Because that's what we are.
Wow.
We are the aliens, but we just think we're the thing. We just think they're somebody else, but we're the ones who came from somewhere else. Because somebody else had to survive, and they got in a little spacecraft, and they came here, and they landed, and they started civilization here. That's what I believe. And if you don't believe me, go get books on the ancient Sumerians and see what they had to say.
That's a whole different discussion now.
They'll tell you right up front.
You've blown that right open.
Yeah, yeah.
We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there.
There have been ET visitation. There have been crashed craft. There have been material and bodies recovered. And there is some group of people somewhere that may or may not be associated with government at this point, but certainly were at one time, that have this knowledge. And have been attempting to conceal this knowledge or not permit it to be widely disseminated.
In my opinion, I think they were worried that it would panic the public if they knew that someone had vehicles that had this kind of performance, way back right after World War II, period of time. So they started telling lies about it. And then I think they had to cover another lie, and tell another lie to cover their first lie, and now they don't know how to get out of it. Now it's going to be so embarrassing to admit that all these administrations have told a lot of untruths that it's going to be embarrassing to get out of it.
Sounds about right.
How far in the future do you estimate that craft was to what we're doing at the present time?
Well, I've heard other people estimate things like that, saying, well, it's 1,000 or 10,000 years advanced of our technology. And I don't really find that to be the case. All I really find to be the case is probably a technology that's about 100 or 200 years in advance of us. And the only reason being is because they stumbled upon a device, a machine that can actually make gravity, that can produce gravitational waves. Now, this is something that our science and physics knows. We know what gravity is. We know how it works, but we really just observe it. We don't understand it, and we certainly don't have a machine that can create a gravitational wave. And because they've developed this, they have a unique propulsion system, and that has a lot of offshoot possibilities and other uses. Also, the power source is fairly unique. We know of its existence. There is a total annihilation reaction we know of. The 3 atomic reactions we know of are fission, as you see in an atomic bomb, fusion, as you see in a hydrogen bomb, and we're currently trying to make a fusion reactor to provide power cleanly. And we also know there's a total annihilation reaction, which is a extremely, virtually 100% efficient reaction that we're really haven't even begun to 100%. Do any research with, but here are these systems in place operating, and it really didn't look that far in advance, of what we were.
Well, one interesting thing, that reactor that powered this vehicle was very small in relationship to the power it produced, was it not?
Oh, it was tremendously tiny. You're looking at something that puts out more power than an average nuclear power plant, and if anyone lives near one of those, you know how big those things are. And we're looking at something, scarcely bigger than a basketball that's doing this.
Whoa.
I don't want to go way down the alien abduction rabbit hole here, but the Greys, and I'm going to tell you this, matter-of-factly, the Greys are real, 100% real.
I mean, thousands of people have seen them.
Yes, many, many people have encountered them. I have friends who have encountered the Greys. One of my friends actually reached out and strangled one until she was deactivated.
Oh my gosh.
Gray aliens are real. Now, what exactly they are, there's a lot of speculation out there. Most of what we know about gray aliens comes from the alien abduction material. This is not fiction. That material there's a body of evidence that has every kind of evidence that you could prove a case in court with. It's got physical evidence, anecdotal evidence, there's all kinds of proof associated with alien abduction that is undeniable. So gray aliens are real, and there's a lot we could say about that. By the way, David Grush said as much in his testimony, that biologicals have been recovered, non-human biological. We're talking about gray aliens here. That's the primary group, I think, that's operating in our airspace. It's not the only group. And there's several groups. It's a very serious topic, and the research, the old school ufological research is very, very good.
Man.
People say that aliens don't exist. The problem is that we're looking in the wrong place. Ain't nobody in the world gonna tell me that an octopus is not an alien. They can really camouflage in whatever environment they're in, perfectly. Same color and same texture, like you're about to see right now. Because not only they could camouflage, they're shapeshifters. Talking about perfectly blending in, on command. The list goes on and on with these aliens. These octopus really have 3 hearts, and they got blue blood. They also can regenerate limbs. You cut a limb off and it's gonna grow right back. The problem is that we don't even know 5% of the ocean down there. So we're looking at a camouflage shapeshifter that is known to do math problems and solve them, that can regenerate limbs, and it's not an alien. I don't even think I could eat octopus anymore, and I love seafood, but it just don't feel right eating an alien. Look at this. On command, if you was scuba diving and you was to pass this coral reef, you would not know that there was an octopus camouflaged. And look at how it changes its structure and it goes back to its original color. Actually, I don't even know what the original color is, because it started off like a mint green, like a pale green. Most definitely an alien if I've ever seen one.
They are very different. Very different.
With a gun to my head, all the weird stuff is in the ocean. It's not from another planet.
Really?
No, I don't know. Who knows? But it makes a lot more sense that the stuff we're seeing, it's the best place to hide is just deep water.
So not from another planet originally? Like maybe originally, and that's where they make their base?
It's hard for me to square how to travel great distances. It's hard for me to square that. I know that we've got the Albuquerque drive and warp drive and all these theoretical things about compressing space-time and all of that. I get it. But it's hard for me to think that that's solvable. But what is interesting is maybe another species evolved alongside of us a long time ago. And has been here a long time and said, you know what, let's go, this is where we go to avoid cataclysms and geological instability. Let's go underwater.
That's a weird one, though, because, like, what kind of technology are you utilizing? How did you achieve that level of technological superiority and not completely control man? Because if I was an intelligent species that was capable of developing bases under the water, I'd be super concerned at all the different things that human beings are doing to ruin things. Like if we had chimps that all of a sudden had flamethrowers and they were lighting the jungle on fire, we'd probably take their flamethrowers.
So like we would turn off a nuclear reactor. Right. So we talk about humans. If this theory is true that they evolved here, there were no humans. Humans are 300,000 years old. That's not. It would take whatever species a lot longer than that to evolve to this technological level. And we've seen the craft just zip into water with no displacement.
Right.
Where are they going? And there are unnamed whistleblowers, anonymous sources that say there's a base near the Bermuda Triangle. The Navy knows about it. They know not to get close. It moves around a little bit. I'm going to do an episode on it soon because it's just too good not to. Corroborated by another biologist who said he worked with the retrieval team, and yes, there's stuff. And what this base does is it from raw materials creates craft to go on specific missions. So there's always the question, why is there a saucer? Why does it look like a pyramid? Why is it this? It's because they're custom built for a mission. And there's an AI and a species down there, and they say, all right, we're going to go survey Mount Hayes in Alaska. Super fascinating place. So we only need a scanning gear, some propulsion, and we just build it. It fits in an orb, send it out, does its thing, comes back, and then it gets broken down to its parts. And then another mission, build it. It's going to be a triangle. It's going to be this or that. Does its mission, comes back. To me, that makes good sense. A good way to do that, a good way to conserve resources, not have to go out and get stuff.
I think I understand from this hearing that you would agree that classifying information like this is not in the best interest.
Classification necessary to protect secrets essential to national security, but I think it's pretty obvious that there's overclassification.
Overclassification, yes. And so in most instances, if they can't tell us what, do you think at some point they'll at least tell us why?
You know, President-elect Trump has repeatedly committed to greater transparency, both on the UAP issue, on JFK files, on COVID origins, and many other things. So I think that we need to make sure that the next administration is held accountable for that.
Agreed. And this is for all four of you. Yes or no, please. I have many questions I want to get to. Are there any known instances of recovered materials or technologies that are not of human origin and maybe connected to any advanced bioscience defense programs within the USG?
I don't know.
I wouldn't be able to answer that, ma'am.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, so there are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics with what is described as non-human genetic material, potentially for the enhancement of human capabilities, hybrids. Are any of you familiar with that? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
I am not, ma'am.
I'm not.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I would like to know, with Immaculate Constellation, how does this relate to UAP activities, Mr. Schellenberg, in oceanic environments? Are there any instances where the Navy or other maritime forces have encountered UAPs that could not be explained by known technology or natural phenomena?
Yeah, the Immaculate Constellation covers both terrestrial and oceanic, and there's actually a number of cases described in the report that occur in the ocean.
And do you believe that there is a concerted effort by the Pentagon to keep Congress out of the loop regarding these UAP activities, specifically in our waters?
Yes.
I think it's about 5% of our ocean that's actually been studied in detail by man, and we've studied more of space than we had of our own oceans. And so are there any accounts of UAPs emerging from or submerging into our water which could indicate a base or presence beneath the ocean's surface?
I don't know about a base, but you know, as I mentioned, I had a different source entirely describe this pretty extraordinary footage that exists of orbs, of an orb coming out of the ocean and being met by another orb.
Some would say that there's multiple hot spots where we see frequent activity. So in your investigations, have you come across any data or visual evidence like sonar readings or underwater footage of these UAPs?
I have not beyond what's in the report.
You've written about UAPs not only in the air but in underwater. Are there any specifics on what you've learned about the UAP activity in our oceans? Particularly, have you spoken with sources who have provided any evidence or eyewitness accounts of these UAPs interacting with our naval forces or being detected by our underwater surveillance systems?
Nothing beyond what's in the report and then the specific case that I mentioned with the orbs.
And so this report says it all. There's no other information that we are aware of regarding the activity within our waters.
I have other sources that have told me that have shared a significant amount of information, but they're not comfortable with me sharing it at this point.
Okay. Are there any technological capabilities observed in these oceanic UAPs that seem to defy our current understanding of physics or our engineering capabilities?
It seems like they all do.
Yes, I would agree with that. My time is up, but I do appreciate your bravery, your courage for coming here and speaking today. And it seems like there's still some questions that we need answers to, and we will not relent until we get those to the American people. Thank you all.
Thank you. I move to allow myself and the ranking member 5 additional minutes for questions.
We gonna see. We gonna see.
You hear a really crazy conspiracy theory that nuclear bombs were not made for humans, but they were made for aliens.
I don't think so.
What about Project Fishbowl? It was basically to test nuclear detonations in the atmosphere and underwater. They let off 29 atmospheric nuclear tests
Oh my gosh.
in 1962. So shortly after the Roswell incident, they truly wanted to see what a nuclear bomb would do interacting with the atmosphere. And it's like, why?
So you're telling me we can't use hairspray, but they can shoot bombs off?
The tests involved detonating nuclear devices at altitudes ranging from 20 to 250 miles above Earth's surface.
Wow.
There's classified documents too, CIA documents, and all these stories about all these nuclear tests. There seems to always be something with UFOs around, like an interaction with UFOs. And then with those stories about the UFOs coming and disarming nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
But then there's some scenarios to where they actually arm them. So that's where the theory that nukes weren't made for people, but they're made to combat this UFO, UAP phenomenon.
He said aliens are on the far side of the moon, and they are not our friends. It's a very interesting story. Ingo Swann, very interesting cat.
So what took these photographs?
The moon surveyor, lunar surveyor, what satellite.
And none of that stuff's ever been released?
Oh, they released a lot of images from the far side, but they release what they release. That's why we know there's fewer impacts on the far side, because we've seen those images.
But there's no images of these domes or whatever?
No. I've seen some that maybe are faked, that look pretty compelling. I forget what episode I just showed them in, but when I found them, it was mind-blowing. And I can't find them again for some reason. Like I wanted them for another episode, and I can't find the photos, which is always suspicious to me. It's like suddenly the thing is blurry off of Malibu. It's like you just can't find the stuff. But my gut tells me something's going on up there. Someone's aware of it. I'm dying to know what it is.
It would be unbelievable if Mars was the first planet that had life before Earth was capable of supporting life. It reached a very high level of sophistication and then started seeding Earth.
Right, panspermia theory.
Yeah.
I believe we have at least one rock from Mars that just landed here. I think we have one of those. So for maybe a giant impact or something, threw some of Mars over here.
But the idea, I think, is that their atmosphere was deteriorating, or that they were getting further and further from the sun.
Their magnetic field was weakening, strips away the atmosphere.
And so this would be the thing. If you were a super advanced civilization, the race would get so advanced that you could leave your planet.
Yes.
And that's the only way you're going to survive, because eventually your planet is going to move over millions of years further and further away from the sun, not able to inhabit life anymore.
Right, so maybe send your DNA or whatever to the third rock.
Or Anunnaki.
Or Anunnaki.
That's the good one.
Yeah, they show up everywhere.
That's the ultimate one.
That is the big one. The Anunnaki's the big one.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that makes you go, oh.
Because it shows up everywhere. It shows up in the Bible. It shows up in the Mahabharata. It shows up in ancient Chinese literature. It shows up everywhere. Not always called the Anunnaki, but the Anunnaki, and then they have their servile species that could be the Nephilim, could be the giants, and then they take these primitive humans, give them just enough intelligence to mine the gold. It's part of the lore.
All right, guys, that was another TikTok compilation. Hey, that was crazy. Y'all let me know in the comments, do y'all believe in extraterrestrials, aliens, UAPs, UFOs? Y'all let me know in the comments, man. I think they real, you know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna lie to you. I think they exist, and I think they've been hiding it from us, period. That's what I think. But if you made it this far, you a real one for real, man. Don't forget to put that in the comments. Also, I got a TikTok playlist. If you into it, you should watch it, but proceed with caution. But until next time, man, self-love and positivity. Fire Squad, I got you when you know it.